In a black and white photograph taken at Fort Bliss in El Paso, Texas, a grinning General John Pershing is standing next to General Francisco Pancho Villa and the future president of Mexico, General Alvaro Obregón. On the far right is a young lieutenant named George S. Patton, Jr. Villa, the provisional governor of Chihuahua, had maintained cordial relations with the U.S. government. Within Mexico, he was seen as a Robin Hood-like figure, raiding the haciendas of wealthy businessmen and redistributing the money and land to destitute farmers, laborers, and widows. The picture was snapped in 1914 on the 26th of August. On that very day, 5,360 miles away, German soldiers were systematically setting fire to the Belgian town of Louvain, a city famous for its architectural splendor, including the Katholieke Universiteit Leuven, the oldest Catholic university in existence. The school's world-renowned library held almost 250,000 priceless medieval, Gothic, and Renaissance manuscripts. When evening came, the sky was a swelling, rippling mix of smoke and fire. Everywhere, tiny bits of paper drifted down like black snowflakes, their edges aglow with bright red embers. To the horror of the townspeople, it was clear that countless rare books and manuscripts from the library were going up in flames. By morning, the building was a heap of smoldering ruins. For weeks, British and French newspapers had been reporting on German atrocities in Belgium. The German government had asked the Belgians to let German troops march peacefully through their country to invade France, but Belgium's King Albert, citing national honor, refused. In retribution, the Germans implemented a policy of Schrecklichkeit, frightfulness or terror, during their invasion, under which any perceived act of violence against even a single German soldier would result in brutal and widespread punishments. The point was to spread so much fear that the entire population would be deterred from offering any resistance whatsoever. British and French newspapers reported that German troops were executing innocent civilians en masse, setting homes on fire and then shooting the residents as they ran out to escape the flames, and turning tens of thousands of Belgians, many of whom were frail and elderly, into refugees who had to trek for miles to seek out a safe haven in another town or village. The articles became increasingly lurid. There were accounts of German soldiers raping nuns, chopping off the hands and feet of small children, and impaling infants on doorways with their bayonets. Many of these stories came from second-hand sources, and even those sympathetic to Belgium and its people questioned their veracity. But the demolition of an ancient library struck a particular chord around the world, because the proof was evident for all to see. It seemed like an attack on civilization itself. Remember Louvain was the first of many rallying cries for those who wanted the United States to enter the war. Richard Harding Davis, a correspondent from the New York Tribune, was in Louvain during the invasion, and days later he wired back a detailed account of what he saw. The Germans sentenced Louvain on Wednesday, August 26, to become a wilderness, and with the German system and love of thoroughness, they left Louvain an empty, blackened shell. Great architects and artists, dead these 600 years, made the city beautiful, and their handiwork belonged to the world. With torch and dynamite, the Germans have turned these masterpieces into ashes. In each building, so German soldiers told me, they began at the first floor, and when that was burning steadily, passed to the one next. There were no exceptions. Whether it was a store, chapel, or private residence, it was destroyed. The occupants had been warned to go, and in each deserted shop or house the furniture was piled, the torch was stuck under it, and into the air went the savings of years, souvenirs of children or parents, heirlooms that had passed from generation to generation. Outside the station in the public square, the people of Louvain passed in an unending procession, women bareheaded, weeping, men carrying the children asleep on their shoulders, all hemmed in by the shadowy army of gray wolves. Once they were halted, and among them were marched a line of men. They well knew their fellow townsmen. These were on their way to be shot.